At last, SpaceX is finally ready to fire up Mechazilla at full power by the end of this year. The launch tower at Starbase was built not just to send Starship and Super Heavy into orbit, but also to catch them on their return, right in midair. An engineering feat that seems like something straight out of a science fiction movie. And yet after 9 test flights, Mechazilla still hasn't once unleashed its full potential. But Elon Musk, as usual, isn't making us wait for long. Just a few more flights to go, and the SpaceX CEO has confirmed Starship will attempt the wildest landing ever attempted, caught mid-air by the very same tower it launched from. Sounds hard to believe, doesn't it? So, what exactly did Elon say? And how could this technique completely change the rules of spaceflight? Let's break it down together in today's episode of Space Now. From NASA's golden age with the Apollo missions to today's era of ultra-advanced rockets, space agencies have always come up with clever ways to safely return astronauts or upper stages of rockets to Earth. Take the Apollo missions, for instance. The crew capsule landed by parachute and splashed down in the ocean, a classic method, but one that worked well. And guess what? That same idea is still in use today. SpaceX's Dragon capsule, even with all its modern upgrades, still follows that same time-tested principle. Now, if we're talking about landing on solid ground, we have to mention the Soyuz and Boeing Starliner spacecraft. Both are designed to land with parachutes and use retro-thrusters to reduce impact when they touch down. That's completely different from the legendary Space Shuttle, which landed like a real airplane gliding in and touching down on a runway. And here's the surprise that landing style is making a comeback. Sierra Space is reviving it with Dream Chaser, a sleek, compact spaceplane that also lands just like a real aircraft. But if the upper stage isn't reusable like the SIVB stage of the Saturn V rocket used in Apollo missions, NASA had some incredibly smart ways of dealing with that too. Sometimes they pushed the stage into a solar orbit. Other times, they sent it crashing straight into the moon. In 1969, they deliberately slammed one stage into the moon's surface to study seismic activity serving science, while also helping to reduce orbital debris. A perfect two-in-one solution. Today, SpaceX is also following that same philosophy. If the upper stage of Falcon 9 can't return, they either let it burn up in the atmosphere or send it into a graveyard orbit. Even the Dragon capsule's trunk, after completing its mission, is detached and burned up during re-entry. But now, Elon Musk is pursuing something no one else in the world has ever dared to try: catching a spacecraft. Right on the very same launch tower it took off from. And this isn't a metaphor. SpaceX actually wants to use a pair of massive mechanical arms known as the chopsticks to catch Starship as it descends under control. Elon once stated that before attempting this extremely risky mid-air catch, SpaceX would first need to complete at least one successful ocean landing. But for a number of reasons, from the FAA investigation to a series of new upgrades to Starship, the plan has been delayed. Still, Elon hasn't given up. When a video of a Starship landing went viral on social media platform X, Elon commented, "Later this year, if luck smiles on SpaceX, the ship will be caught by the tower just like the booster." Sounds pretty epic, right? And that's not all. In a recent presentation on his plan to send humans to Mars, Elon unveiled a dramatic 3D animation Starship slowly descending into Mechazilla and being gently caught by those magic chopsticks. Once again, he reaffirmed the target: "We'll perform the first catch within the next 2 to 3 months. That's the clearest timeline he's given so far. We're now in mid-2025, and if everything goes as planned, the first catch attempt could take place as early as Starship Flight 15. Why? Because Flight 13 is set to use prototype Ship 39 and Booster 18, the first pair from the Starship Generation 3 lineup. With an entirely new design, would you risk such a high-stakes catch right on the first try? Elon might want to think twice. Do you want to see SpaceX pull off this incredible mid-air catch? Leave a comment, share your thoughts, or ask a question. The Space Now team is always ready to respond. And don't forget, we're only at the very beginning of the 21st century's space story. Same goes for Flight 14. If this ends up being the second test flight of Starship's version 3 hardware, there's a strong chance it'll be used to validate the upgrades and fix issues discovered during Flight 13, just like SpaceX did with Flight 9, which focused heavily on solving the harmonic resonance problem, a particularly tricky issue in aerodynamic structural dynamics. And that makes Flight 15 an even more reasonable candidate for the first-ever mid-air catch with Mechazilla, just as many had predicted. But don't get it twisted, this isn't some reckless gamble. Catching Starship isn't like catching Super Heavy. It's an entirely different level of difficulty. Do you know why? Because Starship isn't just an upper rocket stage. It's a fully functional orbital spacecraft packed with highly sensitive systems, from aerodynamic flaps to heat-shielding ceramic tiles. These components not only have to survive extreme conditions, they have to function flawlessly at every stage of the mission. Just a minor failure during launch orbit or re-entry could doom the entire flight. On the way to orbit, Starship must endure massive mechanical stress. Once it's in space, the temperature drops to an incredibly frigid level, nearly 450 degrees Fahrenheit, close to the boiling point of liquid nitrogen. At this temperature, materials like 304L stainless steel actually become stronger in terms of tensile strength, but they also become more brittle and less ductile. That matters a lot in microgravity environments, where even the tiniest crack can quickly propagate and compromise the structural integrity of the vehicle. And that's only half the journey. When Starship re-enters the atmosphere, its heat shield faces extreme temperatures ranging from 2,900 to 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit as it slams into the air at hypersonic speeds. The ceramic tiles are its only line of defense. But if even a single tile comes loose, especially near vulnerable areas like weld seams or material junctions, the heat can punch straight through the skin. The result? Structural deformation, cracked welds, or even total vehicle failure. Whether done by robots or humans, welds aren't immune to error. And if Starship does survive that fiery hell, it still can't breathe easy. The landing sequence is another challenge altogether. It has to decelerate, stabilize, rotate into position, and then comes the craziest part, getting caught mid-air by Mechazilla's giant robotic chopsticks. Can you imagine trying to catch a flying 160-foot-long steel brick as it falls from orbit? Sounds like an impossible mission, doesn't it? And remember, catching a booster is already difficult. Catching Starship is several times harder. Its complex shape, uneven mass distribution, and completely different descent profile make syncing up with the chopsticks a technical nightmare. Even a small deviation in navigation sensor data or thermal warping could shift the catch points by just a few meters, and that's enough for Mechazilla to miss the grab entirely. Now, imagine what happens if that catch fails. The consequences wouldn't just be losing a multi-million-dollar prototype, it could cause major damage to critical infrastructure. This isn't a game. This is a pivotal move that could define the future of Mars missions. So what do you think? Should SpaceX risk it all on this catch attempt this year? If it were up to you, would you go big or play it safe with a few more test flights? We're talking worst-case scenario here, a mid-air explosion, shockwaves blasting out in all directions, shards of metal raining down, and potentially destroying the launch pad. maybe even damaging Mechazilla itself. Sounds terrifying, right? But don't worry, SpaceX isn't diving into this recklessly. If Starship encounters any issues during re-entry, like if a Raptor engine fails to reignite, the catch attempt will be aborted immediately. Instead, the ship will divert and perform a controlled splashdown in the ocean, just like it did during previous test flights. And in the absolute worst-case scenario, SpaceX still has one last card to play: the Flight Termination System, or FTS. This is the final line of defense, a system designed to destroy Starship if it goes out of control and poses a threat to public safety. What's remarkable is that no space agency in the world, not even NASA, has ever considered catching an upper stage in orbit like this. SpaceX's attempt to do it with Mechazilla isn't just a technical breakthrough, it's an all-out challenge involving engineering, logistics, and strategy, all of which must work in perfect sync over the next few months. But if they succeed, it won't just be the first time in history. It will be the only time in history. One successful catch, just one, is enough to prove to the world that Starship is truly a fully reusable spacecraft. Do you know how much it costs to build a full Starship system, including both the booster and the upper stage? Tens of millions of dollars. But if it can be reused, each launch could cost as little as $2 to $3 million, mostly just for the liquid methane and liquid oxygen plus basic maintenance. And there's more: if Mechazilla catches Starship successfully, it won't have to endure brutal impact forces from landing on hard ground or splashing down in the ocean. That means no more risk of leaking fuel into the sea, no threat to marine life, and no more recovering billion-dollar vehicles in damaged condition. This is a leap forward in environmental protection, a cleaner, greener approach to the future of spaceflight. And beyond protecting the ocean, it dramatically shortens the entire post-launch recovery process. If Mechazilla catches Starship's upper stage, everything becomes vastly more efficient. The robotic arms simply lower the ship back onto the ground, then transfer it onto a transporter system. Within minutes, Starship is ready for reassembly. No more specialized recovery teams. No more hauling vehicles back from the middle of the ocean like with Falcon 9 or Dragon. No more waiting for hours or even days. In short, Mechazilla's catch wouldn't just be a technical feat. It would be a bold statement. SpaceX is redefining how humanity approaches space. So, what do you think? Could the first catch happen this year? Or will we need to wait a few more flights before this Dragon truly spreads its wings? All of these elements are absolutely critical to helping SpaceX stay on track with its ambitious Starship launch cadence. But here's the most important piece of the puzzle: Mechazilla doesn't just allow them to recover Starships, it enables rapid back-to-back launches with unprecedented speed. And that's a strategic game-changer for complex missions like NASA's Artemis program, which aims to return humans to the Moon, or even massive cargo transport missions to Mars in the not-so-distant future. Now, imagine a colony on Mars. To sustain life, expand infrastructure, and become self-sufficient, it might take hundreds of launches to deliver hundreds of thousands of tons of equipment, energy systems, fuel, and building materials from Earth to the Red Planet. If we stick with the traditional launch cycle, which takes weeks between flights, that vision becomes a logistical nightmare. But Mechazilla could cut the turnaround time from weeks to just a few days, or even under 48 hours. That's a revolutionary shift. Why is this so important? For long-duration missions like a 6-month journey to Mars, the launch window only opens once every 26 months, and it stays open for just a few weeks. If SpaceX misses that window, the entire mission gets pushed back by more than 2 years. That's why processing speed, preparation time, and launch cadence all need to be pushed to an unprecedented level, and Mechazilla is the key to making that happen. Of course, the dream of setting foot on Mars is still a distant one. Realistically, it might take another 10, maybe even 20 years before that becomes a reality. But in the near term, there's a major milestone that everyone in the space tech world is watching closely: orbital refueling. It's a critical breakthrough, one that's absolutely essential for long-duration missions to the Moon and Mars. The original plan was to attempt it by the end of this year, but now it will likely be pushed into early next year. Why the delay? Because if SpaceX manages to catch Starship successfully using Mechazilla, it won't just be a technical victory. It will prove they're operationally ready for even more complex maneuvers like orbital docking and fuel transfer, something no country has ever successfully done before. Next on the roadmap, the Moon. SpaceX is planning to launch an uncrewed Starship into lunar orbit as early as next year, paving the way for NASA's Artemis program to return American astronauts to the Moon in 2027 and 2028, marking the first human return to the lunar surface in over half a century. At the same time, SpaceX is quietly accelerating its Mars agenda. An uncrewed flight could happen within the next 2 years, and if all goes smoothly, a crewed mission could follow just 2 years later. All of this, from refueling in orbit to delivering hundreds of tons of cargo and building bases on other celestial bodies, hinges on one single starting point: a completely new way of landing. It's a bold, unconventional move that could rewrite the entire history of spaceflight. With Mechazilla, Elon Musk isn't just upgrading a rocket, he's redefining the entire playbook for 21st century space exploration. We were once left speechless watching Neil Armstrong take those first steps on the Moon, a timeless moment for humanity. Now the question is, do you believe Mechazilla will become the turning point for the global space industry? What if Starship really could launch as frequently as commercial jets? Drop your thoughts in the comments and share your take with the space-loving community. And don't forget, subscribe to Space Now so you can follow every step of SpaceX and humanity's journey to the stars. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.